What's up, poker people? My name's Wes, and this is my poker vlog. Today we're playing a 1-3 no limit cash game session. We're back at that private home game. This is a no cap buy-in, no cap on the straddles, and we've got a special game now called small blind game we're playing today. I'll explain it in just a bit, but first of all, wish me luck. Alright, this is a private 1-3 game where you can buy in for whatever you want, and you can straddle whatever you want. I bought in for $1,000. This hand has a $6 straddle. It's short-handed to start the evening, and I'm going to raise it up with ace-10 offsuit. Man, it's been an entire month since I played live poker. That seems crazy. I'm really starting to miss it. We're going to go 4 ways to the flop in this hand. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and you will get an alert when I post new videos. Ooh, there's an ace and a 10. The flop is ace-queen 10, so I flop top and bottom. This is a pretty draw-heavy board for people playing Broadway cards. King, queen, jack 10, and king jack would be the nuts. But I'm gonna go ahead and c-bet 60 bucks into 100, get called by the button, and we're going heads up to the turn. Just don't wanna see a king or a jack or, oh, a 10's good. I was gonna say I don't wanna see a queen, but I feel good about this 10 on the turn. I have 10s full of aces. If he's got any of this, I assume he will continue, so I bet 100, and he snap folds. I guess he didn't have anything. Can I have the pot? All right, another $6 button straddle. Small blind raises to 15. Under the gun calls, and I look down to queen 8 offsuit and I fold, but we're gonna watch this hand play out because this is fireworks right here. 7-7-5 deuce. They just get it all in on the turn. You can see seat 1 turned a set of deuces, but seat 2 had pocket 5s and he actually flopped 5s full of 7s. Full house over full house for stacks. So gross that Justin turned a deuce just to go broke. Unless he can hit a deuce on the river. Let's see what it is. It's a 4. All right, take a look. When the dealer gives me the button, it's got some money along with it. This is what we're gonna call the small blind game. You may have heard it as the button game. We've adopted it to the small blind in Houston. So there's a progressive jackpot. Every time the button moves, the player on the button has to add to the jackpot. We're doing $25. So you can see every time the button moves, there's 25 being added. Eventually, the small blind, if he wins a hand, he wins that pot. All he has to do is win a hand and show the hand, and he wins that progressive pot. Now, this might not sound very interesting, but what ends up happening is the guy in the small blind always has better odds than everyone else in the hand to continue. So you might see some interesting hands play out. In this scenario, we got 4 diamonds on the board, and king jack of hearts bluffed the small blind off of his hand. Well, maybe he didn't have a diamond, but he thought he was bluffing. So the interesting thing here is now you're gonna find other players trying to bluff out the small blind to keep the jackpot alive so that maybe they can win it in the future. And it may not seem that significant for just a couple $100, but what if that jackpot grew to, say, $1,000? Spoiler alert. I added a new stat to the screen so you can keep track of what the small blind pot is in each hand. In this hand, it's $350, the largest it's been at this point in the evening. Everybody limped in, and I've got aces. Now, the strategy of these players is to actually limp in some of these spots with weaker hands just to call a raise. So I can actually raise bigger here, knowing they intended to call a raise the whole time, and knowing that they know that I know, and yada yada. Plus, I can make it 75 here with aces. If everybody folds, I still win the 350 small blind pot. So it's not a big deal if they fold, but clearly I'd rather them call. 2 of them do call, and we're going to the flop 3 ways with pocket aces. And a flop a full house. Flop is ace 5-5. They're probably drawing stone dead, but I would definitely bet this flop with this 350 side pot. I would bet this flop with any of my hands that I raised. I don't care how bad they are. I can c-bet 100 to win 880 with 7 deuce here. And we get min raised to 200. This is my lucky day.
I'll re-raise.
Re-raise.
And this is another special Wes move I like to make sometimes, mainly just because I think it's hilarious. She actually has to tell him, yeah, he re-raised to 300. He goes all in and I call. He's probably drawing dead. He has 4-5. He flopped trips. He's not drawing dead, but mostly dead. I'm not dead yet. The turn is a queen. Oh, the river's a 4. Oh, that doesn't matter. At the end of each hand, if the small blind wins the pot, I'm actually adding the small blind pot to the pot. So it's actually 1458 plus 350 for 1808 in this pot. Get a poker-themed face mask at razorclothing.com. The button straddles 25, both blinds call. Under the gun +1 makes it 100 over here. And I look down at pocket kings. I'm not gonna slow play this. He only has a little bit under 600. I think we can probably get it in here if he has a good hand. I just make it 300. We're gonna try to get them all in. Button thought about it, but he folded, the blinds folded, and he does go all in. And I call. Pocket kings, heads up, pre-flop, all in. The flop is ace queen 10, and that's a pretty bad flop for pocket kings. I'm pretty worried about my hand at this point. But the turn's a jack, and that gives me Broadway. At this point, he does tell me he has pocket jacks. He turned a set. He's gonna need the board to pair, and it doesn't, and I scoop the $1,200 pot. And now things are gonna get a little bit interesting because there's $625 in the small blind pot. Only the small blind can win that money. And he's just gonna open shove $930. This is something you don't see normally. This small blind pot creates an interesting dynamic in the game. So the other thing that's interesting is the other players know he doesn't have to have that good of a hand to decide to go all in. He's risking $930 to win the $625. You have to have a hand willing to call $930 to try to defend the $625, so he could be doing this pretty light. And the players in this game are thinking players, and they're thinking about that. They know he could have rags, he could just have an ace, he could do this with any pair as bad as deuces. In fact, he could do it without looking at his cards if he wanted to. So the players are thinking, do they want to call off? And that player does. He calls all in for less, $560. And now the other player calls off. He actually covers both players, but he's risking $930 to keep this pot alive. Or maybe he has a hand. I haven't even looked at my cards yet. This is so exciting. I'm waiting for the player on my right to decide what to do. Now I get to look. Deuce tray? I don't even care who wins. And now we've added yet another degen element to this game. Every 30 minutes, every player has to add 25 to the pot to boost the pot and make it bigger. But the small blind just won that pot, so now we're back to just $25 in the small blind pot. So this is just gonna be a regular poker hand, and I've got ace king and I don't need no side pot. I'm gonna raise this up over the $25 button straddle. I make it 75 to go. The cutoff calls and the button calls. You're gonna find that the cutoff and button and I play most of the hands together the entire night. And that's a king in the window. Flop is king 9-7 with 2 spades. I have the ace of spades. Gonna bet this flop. I can bet kind of big because there's a lot of draws and no one's ever folding a king. Basically nobody's ever folding a pair or any draw on this flop. So I bet 200. The cutoff gets out of the way. It's over to the button. He likes my offer and he calls. And now to the turn card, which is the jack of diamonds. What do you guys think? Should we bet this turn card or check this turn card? Hey, leave a comment below. Bet ace king or check ace king. I'll give you a second. Go leave a comment. Now you might be thinking you should check this jack, but I'm actually gonna bet it, and here's why. I made a chart of all the hands that I think would call a raise and then call a bet on this flop. And I'm gonna put a marker on all the ones that now have improved to beat me. And although there are now 12 combinations that beat me, there are 39 combinations that don't beat me. But we can't ignore the hands that just outflopped me, but I think he would have raised those hands on the flop, so I'm not worried about the sets and 2 pairs he could have flopped. So I decided to value bet 425. I could still have a lot of draws myself. I could have a lot of one pair and straight draw hands. I think if he's got any good top pair, king, queen, for example, king 10, he's not gonna fold those hands. If he has any draw, he's not gonna fold. Let's see what he does. He goes all in for about $700 and I snap call. Going to the river. The river's the deuce of spades, so if he had a flush, okay, never mind. One pair of kings is good enough to take down the $2,000 pot and the $25 small blind pot. All right, I bought it for $1,000 and I have $27.30 in my stack now. And we've upped the ante. It's $50 every button and $50 every 30 minutes now. So the small blind pots are gonna grow and it's $500 in this hand and I'm in the small blind. I look down at ace queen offsuit. I raise it up to $300, which might seem like a lot over a $25 button straddle, but I'm actually playing this game more like I'm risking X to win Y, but I'm the only person that has Y to consider. So I'm gonna be making large raises and I'm gonna be doing it with hands that aren't always ace queen. I don't wanna give these guys some sort of great odds to call pre-flop just because they had a $25 button straddle on and they're trying to defend the small blind pot. I don't actually know if this is the right game theory for this game, but this is how I approached it during this session. And my stack keeps growing and now I'm at $4,700. I'm in the small blind again, but there's only 100 in the small blind pot. I've got ace king again. I'm just gonna raise the 3x size over the $25 straddle since there's not much added in the small blind game, and the big blind 3-bets me to $225. Now he's not super deep. I consider this hand good enough to put him all in. I put him all in and he doesn't snap call. And you know what that means. I might actually win this hand half the time. We do get it in for his $900. And we're gonna go to the flop, hoping to hit an ace or a king. The flop is jack 7-8, none of my suit. The turn's a 5. And the river's a 3. The big blind's gonna take this hand down. I just have ace king high. Oh, what was that? Oh, he mucked! He must have had ace queen! Stack update, $5,200. I'm in the small blind again, and look at that, $800 in the small blind pot. But I've only got jack 5 suited. I decided just to limp in, and this is the other way you could try to play this game. Keep the pot small, use that extra pot as your own pot odds that no one else has, and increase your pot odds, make them exponential by just limping in and keeping the pot small. Now the button does put a raise in here, so we're actually gonna go $125 to the flop, but there's $800 I could win on the side. But not on this flop. I completely miss, so I check. Checks around to the button and he checks. Oh, the turn's a jack, but it's a heart. At least I have a pair. I don't want to alert anybody that I have any showdown value. I'm not betting this. I'm gonna check. If I bet, they might raise me off of my hand, trying to bluff me off to keep that pot alive. The button bets $325. I'm just gonna hem and haw and make the call. The cutoff folds and he accidentally exposes a card. It's the king of clubs. No, the other one, there it is. And we're going to a river. The river's an ace. This might be a card he uses to get me off of my hand. I check, he checks, show my hand. Oh, he has jack 3, I have him out kicked. Jack, jack, ace, 9, 6. Oh, it's a chop, no! Since I didn't outright win the hand, that $800 is gonna stay in the small blind pot. But since we're four-handed, that pot's made it around and it's added $200 and now it's $1,000 and I'm in the small blind. I don't need a very good hand to go after this $1,000. And I have an ace and I'm going after it. Ace of spades, 6 of diamonds, $1,000 that only I can win. What do you think's the right raise size here? I decided to make it 500. No one should want to cold call 500 just to defend the $1,000 out there. He's got a $25 button straddle on. He's gonna have to have a real hand to put $500 out there. Oh God, help me. I'm gonna need an ace or a 6. No! 8-3 deuce? What am I gonna do now? What do I do? Seriously, what do I do? Do I bet? There's $1,000 in the main pot, 1,000 in the side. I mean, he probably missed 2. I guess I'm gonna c-bet. I decided to c-bet $600. Pre-flop, he didn't look like he had a very good hand. He actually counted down the small blind pot to see if it was worth defending. He wasn't just thinking about his own hand, so maybe he just missed this flop. He's gonna fold and we're gonna move on. I want that $1,000 pot. Well, I want both $1,000 pots. So over to you, Button. What are you gonna do? He doesn't normally take this long in hand, so I'm pretty sure he completely missed this flop. He's just bothered that he's gonna have to fold and I'm gonna win the, oh my God! How much is that? What is that? He raised me to what? $1,600 and I only have ace 6 high. But wait a minute. Here's the deal about this game. I'm incentivized to try to take this pot down. If he had a hand, even a hand like an 8, why would he try to raise and have potential for me to not put any more money in this pot? Doesn't that mean if he's raising, he doesn't have a very good hand, or at the very least has a draw? Because no good hand should make a raise here, because I should shove the turn with anything I have. So now I actually think the fact that he raised means he's weak. That actually makes a lot of sense. Does that mean I need to shove ace-6 offsuit all in? That's what I do. I shove $5,000 with ace-6 offsuit. And he calmly called without even thinking about it. I guess I'm just hoping no club and that my ace high is gonna win. Turns a 10 of diamonds. I don't know if that's a good card or a bad card. I show my hand and he shows 7 deuce. He called $500 pre-flop with 7 deuce, hit a deuce on the flop, raised me, and got it all in for $5,000. This is the dumbest game I have ever played. This is also the biggest pot I've ever lost. I sat there grinding my stack up for hours, bought in for 1,000, built it all the way up to $5,000, and it's all gone to 7 deuce. I've had it with this game, and there's only one option, and that's to buy in again for $4,000. I'm coming for you, 7 deuce. The button in this hand is gonna put out a $50 straddle, but you're barely gonna notice it because look at that small blind pot. I didn't think it could get any bigger, but it's $1,150. As the small blind raises to 400, I actually call, and so does the button. How did the pot get so big? It's actually kind of funny. The player now on the button forgot to show his cards after winning the pot. He actually won the pot and then forgot to show his hand, and the pot stayed alive. So here we are on the flop. He's gonna c-bet 550. I got out of the way. We're gonna watch these two guys battle it out. The turn is the 3 of diamonds. So the pre-flop action was 400. The flop was 550. I wanna see just how big this turn bet is gonna be. Oh, he checks. The button's gonna wanna bet now. Keep that pot a lot. Oh, he checks. The river's a 10, and now I have no idea if either guy has a pair at all. There's $2,300 in the pot, but an extra $1,150 that only the small blind can win. He's gonna have to win this pot and remember to show his cards. He's gonna bet $1,500. He gets snap called by the button. Oh, and he just mucks his cards. 10-6. He called $400 pre-flop with 10-6 offsuit, flop to 6, river to 10. $5,000 pot going the way of the button, and the small blind pot stays alive. And we roll into the very next hand. I'm the small blind, $1,200 out there, and I have queen 4 suited. I tried making it 500 before. I even tried limping in. I'm honestly not sure what the right tactic is here. How much am I supposed to make it with $1,200 in the small blind pot? How about 15 $100. I just want to take this down right now. I do not want to see a flop. Now you might be wondering, why don't you just shove? And the answer is, because I have $5,000 in my stack. So I gotta show my hand, and I almost mucked it, but the cutoff said, show a bluff, and that reminded me I actually needed to show my cards or I can't win the pot. But I remembered and I took down the $1,200 small blind pot. And this is the mystery hand of the evening. There's a $25 button straddle. Small blind pot is only $150. I raised it up to $100, and the cutoff and the button called. The flop is ace, deuce, 3, 2 clubs. I c-bet $200. We're looking at the cutoff and he calls, and the button calls too. The turn is the 3 of clubs. Pairs the board and the club draw gets there. I check. The cutoff's gonna bet pretty small, $250. The button calls and I fold, and I actually don't know what I had. It was a mystery to me as well. But this hand's in there because of these two guys going at each other. This is gonna be a common theme through the rest of the video, and look at that $1,000 river bet by the cutoff. The button calls. He doesn't wanna show, he just mucks his cards. $1,000 bluff failed on the river. All right, this is the real mystery hand of the night. The small blind raises to 100, big blind calls, and I call. We're gonna go 3 ways to the flop. I've got the mystery hand, and the flop is king 7-3, all hearts. Goes check, check to me, and I check. Turns a deuce of clubs. The small blind checks, and the big blind bets 150, and I got you again. I folded, I have no idea what I had, but we're gonna watch these two guys battle it out one more time. We're on the river, it's checked over to the big blind, and he bets 300. Now I wanna point out, there's only 250 in the small blind game. So this hand has been playing completely different than previous hands. You see the difference? No one's going crazy, no one's going after each other, because there's not a side pot to add all this extra action. These guys are playing their hands true to their value. He just raised to $1,800? What? It's over to the big blind. Does he want to call $1,800 after betting 300? He's gonna have to have a pretty amazing hand to call that bet, buddy. He calls. Oh my God, it was another bluff, and he called with king 4. King 4, he had a pair of kings with a 4 kicker. It's my small blind again, and we have $700 in the small blind pot. I look down at pocket deuces. I'm gonna go with that limping strategy, see if we can play a small pot and use that small blind pot as pot odds. But instead, I just flop a deuce. The flop is queen 9 deuce with 2 clubs. I'm gonna go ahead and bet this flop. I'm gonna go with a standard sizing of 2.5 times the pot. I bet 200 into the $78 pot. It gets 1 fold, but the button calls. I'm okay with that. No club, no club, no club. Ah! All right, well, you know what? I'm gonna bet again. He doesn't have to have clubs. Now I bet 500 into a $478 pot. And he calls. The river's another club. Oh, dang it, no more clubs. I can't bet this. I'm gonna go ahead and check. He could put a really big bet out there and blow me off my hand, but he checks. I show my set, and he doesn't have a club. Give me that small blind pot. $2,000 pot, let's go. I'm in the small blind again, but there's only $50 in the pot. I look down at ace jack suited. Gonna raise it up to 3x, the $25 button straddle. So we're just playing a normal hand of poker here. I get called by the cutoff. Going to the flop, and that's a jack. The flop is jack 10-3 with 2 diamonds. You always gotta be careful on those jack 10 flops, but I have top pair and I see bet 100 and he calls. The turn's a 6 of hearts, which is pretty much a brick. I'm gonna bet one more time. I'm not concerned just yet. I bet $250. And the cutoff calls. The river's an 8. It's not quite as bad as a 9 would be, but I think this is a card I just want to check and maybe call. He could have some 2-pair or straight hands now. And he bets, what is that? $900? He just pots it on the river? What do I do? Well, I snap called, and he shows 4-5 for a 5 high. After losing that $11,000 pot, I bought back in and battled it back up to $7,000 for a $2,000 win. If that hand had played differently, this could have set a new record for me, but it wasn't meant to be. Be sure to like this video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and also turn on notifications so you can get an alert when I put out a new video. More videos coming out next week. Check back.